It's been more than 6 months since Ukraine launched its highly anticipated counteroffensive. The goal was to decisively push Russian forces back, liberate communities, and seize momentum on the battlefield. At best, it's been a deadly, grinding slog. Others have dubbed it a failure. So what's Ukraine up against? A sprawling, well-defended front line, and now also growing political friction.
President Zelensky, what does it mean if you don't get aid by the end of the year?
Ukraine is seeking to shore up political support as the financial and the human cost grows of a war that appears to have become a stalemate. Ukraine is trying to recapture areas in the south and in the east, for territories which Russia invaded and now claims as its own. But Ukraine's slow advance has given Russia time to build up layers of defense and to strengthen its military.
The ground is in favor of the Russians.
Retired Major General Chip Chapman says the front line stretches more than 1,000 kilometers.
You can't be strong everywhere, or you end up being weak everywhere. The key main effort for both sides is in the Zaporizhia area, really what I would call the triangle of decision, coming down from Tokmak, linked across on this side of the triangle to Melitopol, and then across to Mariupol. So this is the triangle of decision.
The area includes the community of Tokmak, strategically important because of the railway that passes through it. To the south, there's a highway that runs toward the Russian border. If Ukraine was able to seize control of these transportation corridors, it would cut off the supply lines for Russia's military.
100,000 men need 1,000 tons of supply a day. And if you can make sure that that doesn't get there, the bulk of that is both fuel and artillery ammunition, then the sinews of war start to really degrade for the enemy, the Russian enemy in this case.
That was the hope, that Ukraine's troops could quickly recapture large swaths of land like it did in the north near the city of Kharkiv. But in the south, they have struggled. Over the summer, troops advanced less than 100 meters a day. Ukraine managed to recapture a small number of communities like Robotyne, which now lays decimated. As Ukrainian troops try to punch through Russia's defenses, the wide open fields have made the soldiers even more vulnerable. In the early days of the counteroffensive, Russia released these videos of Ukrainian vehicles burned and abandoned.
We haven't seen fortifications in depth on this scale since the Second World War.
We wanted to illustrate, with the help of a very basic model, some of the obstacles, including trenches, landmines, and concrete barriers known as dragon's teeth.
So the first problem the Ukrainians face is overcoming the anti-tank ditch, which should be wider than the vehicles available to them.
If the vehicles can't make it over on their own, the military has to construct makeshift bridges or demolish part of the trench.
Your second problem comes when you get to the wire. It is possible for certain vehicles to actually drive over wire, depending how wide it is, but you can use explosive clearing techniques to get through that, to create a lane which various vehicles could go through. But that doesn't allow you to expand before you get to the first trench systems,
which Russian soldiers spent months digging in a zigzag pattern to better protect them from attacks.
Once you've overcome that, you get to the real problem which the Ukrainians have had, which is the density of the minefield.
It's a major risk across the entire front line. That's why Ukrainian sappers often lead the way. They try to defuse the mines and clear a path for the armored vehicles behind them. It's extremely dangerous and time-consuming work. As Ukraine plods forward, it's tried to erode Russia's military might from the air by launching long-range strikes against targets including airfields and fuel and ammunition depots. In the fall, Ukraine's top general described the battle as being stuck in a stalemate. So what's next? Ukraine is building up its own defenses along the front line, and the military says it wants to mobilize another 500,000 Ukrainians, a move that would surely be contentious.
Я вам точно могу сказать, у нас не хватает людей отчасти, это заметно по позициям. Но мобілізувати – це не значить відправити їх на фронт.
Ні, я думаю, цього не буде достатньо. Нам потрібна допомога Заходу, Америки. Нашого війська не вистачить. Це моя думка.
U.S. lawmakers are currently divided over whether to supply Ukraine with tens of billions of more dollars in security assistance. It's been nearly 2 years since the country was torn apart by Russia's full-scale invasion, and some think the fighting may eventually have to give way to negotiation.
Але якщо війна затягнеться,
If the war drags on for a year and two, there will be no way out. Sooner or later, we will have to agree on the cessation of hostilities.
But Ukraine's president has insisted he will not negotiate unless Russia withdraws all of its troops. Ukraine vows it will keep fighting even if the financial and military support wanes.
And of course, people afraid to be again alone. But you have to know that even if we'll be, we will stand and fight.
But tens of thousands continue to die on both sides, and Russia's president, who unleashed this war against Ukraine in the first place, doesn't appear to be going anywhere. Vladimir Putin says he will run for president again this spring, which means he will almost certainly be re-elected for another 6 years.